where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to do another Godzilla Q&A. So last week's video, we discussed, I did a general Q&A video, pretty much answering a very common question that came up in the comments regarding other monsters coming into the Legendary Universe outside of the three that we're getting. This video, we're going to go back to actually answering some of the questions in the comment section in general. And this first one comes from Cameron Johns. Do you think we will ever get a Godzilla and Pacific Rim crossover? If so, how do you think they'd make it work? There's always a possibility. I'm going to lean towards no right now, but I'm sure it's something that's come up. I'm sure it's something that's been conversed. There's part of me that thinks that one of the reasons Pacific Rim is getting a sequel is because that is indeed what they're going to do, is try to incorporate some of the Godzilla universe into it. But there are some issues. Number one, the timeline. At the time Godzilla would have arrived is, I think, a little bit after the first kaiju in the Pacific Rim had landed in San Francisco and already destroyed the bridge that Godzilla destroyed. So that's one thing that's an issue, is the timeline. You could always do the alternate universe where there's parallel universes that collide, and this is how the universe of Godzilla meets the universe of Pacific Rim. Obviously, we've seen stuff like that on TV with the Flash, parallel universes joining and meeting each other. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. The other issue I think you run into, though, is, once again, you got to keep in mind Toho, and when you're doing business with Japanese productions or even certain companies, contracts work very differently. Toho, as far as I know, is pretty selective of what kind of monsters are involved with Godzilla. What kind of monsters show up. I think this is one of the reasons why you have Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra coming into the fold. I think they wanted to see how Godzilla was going to do in the U.S. first. So obviously America had to use their own monsters. And once they saw the success, they wanted to try and incorporate some of their other creations, which they know are more recognizable than Muto's. And that's why we're getting them. So, excuse me. At this point, I think Pacific Rim, obviously it'll work. Big robots, giant monsters. But I'm going to lean towards no. I don't think we're going to see one. Could they make it work? Yeah, they could. It wouldn't be an issue. Even with the timeline, they can go a different route. It's not the timeline, as people say that all the time, which is very true. Timeline is the issue, but that's an issue that can be easily fixed through storytelling. And of course, if the monster action is good, nobody's going to give a shit if there's a small loophole in there somewhere. There have been plenty of fantastic movies with loopholes that still get, great critical acclaim or very, very much, the audience is satisfied with what they see regardless. So, but I don't think we'll see one. I think they're going to be two separate universes, but if it were to happen, it wouldn't surprise me. So I'll just keep it at that. So moving on, going down the list here, and these questions are coming from the video I have with the Mechagodzilla thumbnail. So this comes from Sylvia Smith, whose question I missed last time, and I'm assuming it's a she. So the question is, do you think the gravity-defying dropkick should be used in the sequel? And also, how do you think the red spiral ray could work in the series? Do you think it could work in the series? We will not see the gravity-defying dropkick. Not at all. As far as the red spiral, it could. It's not anything that's so drastically different that it couldn't work. They could make something simple where, he gets enraged and his rage causes his beam to turn red. There's so many different ways they can go with that. There's so many different ways they can explain it. So I think it'll work, and it wouldn't surprise me if we saw it. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw it. So, excuse me. All right. So moving along here. Oh, okay, here we go. How much do you think Godzilla, this comes from Jainer Padilla, how much do you think Godzilla 2 King of Monsters and Kong versus Godzilla will do at the box office? Or how do you think the advertising will be for both movies, especially Kong versus Godzilla? Will it be like Captain America Civil War advertising? I definitely think the Kong versus Godzilla movie was going to have some serious advertising. They're going to use every cliche, like boxing or UFC kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost making it seem like it's a big boxing match, but they'll do it in forms of movies and using the monsters. I think the Kong vs. Godzilla movie is definitely going to be hugely advertised. I also think it'll probably be the best money-making film of the whole series. You talk about King Kong, he's very recognizable here. It's an American monster. And King Kong vs. Godzilla from the 60s was also very popular. It was a very popular movie, both here and in Japan, despite how bad it looked. That's one of the worst looking movies in any Godzilla movie I've seen. Yeah, so it was just bad. But, as far as the other movies, yeah, you're definitely gonna see some advertising. I think the Godzilla 2 movie is going to be pretty much promoted similarly to the first one, with less secret of showing Godzilla. Godzilla will be shown, of course. The cat's out of the bag. There's no surprises anymore. But I think you'll get the same kind of treatment for the other monsters. You know, like a little bit of teasing. You know, you might see a Mothra wing here. You might see a Ghidorah wing there if he's in the sequel. So yeah, I think the advertising is going to be probably much bigger for the Kong versus Godzilla movie. I think it'll be fairly big for the Godzilla sequel, but I do think that Kong will make the most money of any of the movies. Kong versus Godzilla, that is, will make the most money of all the movies there. So yeah. Moving on, and let's just scroll down here. Do you think the future, and this comes from Madara Uchiha, hope I pronounced that right. Do you think the future Godzilla King Kong movie will have Easter eggs of other Toho monsters? Example, Monarch Scientists, we tried to incorporate 2 scythes under the limb. So you're giving me examples of like, okay, I get it. Yeah, I mean, this is a common question. This seems to come up almost every week. This question about other monsters being incorporated. And again, I don't think so. I don't think there'll be Easter eggs. You know, you have to understand these are still monsters that they have to get permission for. Even if they use them for 30 seconds as an Easter egg, they have to get permission. You know, we saw some Easter eggs in Godzilla 2014, the Rodan origami, a lot of, you know, the Mothra, you know, those things are fine because they're not actually using the monster. They're just using little hints. And so, you know, if you might get an Easter egg of other Toho monsters that are not directly looking like them or not even directly showing them. Maybe it's a picture of a dragon that looks like Ghidorah, but it's not Ghidorah. And you might see a word that looks like it says Ghidorah, but it cuts off halfway, depending on how the camera shows, stuff like that. But you won't get full on fleshed out Easter eggs of, like, for example, like you were saying, Monarch Scientists talking about cutting the slice off Kamacuras to try and incorporate it, and you're just not going to get that, I don't think. So, but again, always a possibility. These are always possibilities, but I think this obsession that a lot of people have right now with other monsters coming into these movies, I think it really needs to tone down a little bit, because what you do is you kind of set yourself up for disappointment. You don't want to start thinking to yourself, yeah, they could do this and they might do this. That's why a lot of times, like, I know people think I'm a Debbie Downer, but I already saw what happened during 2014 when people thought all these things were going to happen. And I think that's a big reason why now a lot of people are disappointed with that movie, is because they set their own expectations so high. And when you set your own expectations, you're pretty much setting yourself up to not like the movie, because you're expecting to see things that are just not going to be there. They're just not. So I think the best thing to do is just accept the fact that we have Ghidorah, Mothra, Rodan, and that's it. And that's the only expectation you should have. And I think if you stick with that, you'll probably be more than satisfied with what they deliver. So, okay, moving down the line here. Do you think, so this comes from Cody Fiesel. Do you think Bagan can make an appearance in Legendary Godzilla? No. No chance, none in hell. Not only because, alluding to my prior answer of the last question, but nobody knows who Bagan is. Nobody. I mean, how many people played that Super Nintendo? I didn't even play that Super Nintendo game. I only know of Bagan because of, ever since I started doing YouTube videos, all these people brought it up, and I had to look it up and see what it was about. I think maybe 10,000 people might have played that game, and maybe out of the 10,000 people that played that game, maybe triple or quadruple that know about Bagan through word of mouth. I mean, you never, if the only chance you have to see Bagan is through Toho. That's it. You're definitely not going to see it in Legendary. Definitely not. So, yep. Moving on. How would the storyline be? This comes from Gojira for Life. How would the storyline be if it would be Space Godzilla or Destroyer? Destroyer may not be too bad. I think there's a storyline they can incorporate with Destroyer. I think that's because technically Destroyer is a crustacean. So, I mean, we have so many different species of crustacean in the ocean. That wouldn't be too hard to develop a story for that. Space Godzilla is a different story, because now you're flirting with something similar to Mechagodzilla, where you have an alien monster that is just like Godzilla. You have to answer the questions why. And while we know the answer to that question from a Toho's perspective, is that kind of story going to work for the general audience? No. So you have to come up with a new reason as to why you have an alien monster that looks just like Godzilla, but has two big ass crystals for shoulder pads. So, be that as it may, I don't think you'll see either monster in the Legendary Universe, anytime soon, if at all. So, just my opinion. I'm not trying to, get people all upset. That's just how it is. So I think that wraps it up for here. Let me just scroll down and make sure I got everybody covered. If I happen to miss your question, please, you can resubmit it in the next video, which will be up this week. I just want to make sure I got everybody. Okay, I think I got everybody. So yeah, that wraps up the questions for this Q&A, guys. Just leave them for the next video, which will be up this week. You guys know, always leave your questions in the comment section, and I will definitely answer them. I'll try to get all of them, and if I don't miss it, if I don't get them, to just resubmit it for the next video. Until then, this is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching ETN. You can follow ETN on Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter, or join the Nation Facebook page. Don't forget to click that subscribe button on your way out. You're watching ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to do another Godzilla Q&A. So last week's video, we discussed, I did a general Q&A video, pretty much answering a very common question that came up in the comments regarding other monsters coming into the Legendary Universe outside of the three that we're getting. This video, we're going to go back to actually answering some of the questions in the comment section in general. And this first one comes from Cameron Johns. Do you think we will ever get a Godzilla and Pacific Rim crossover? If so, how do you think they make it work? There's always a possibility. I'm going to lean towards no right now, but I'm sure it's something that's come up. I'm sure it's something that's been conversed. There's part of me that thinks that one of the reasons Pacific Rim is getting a sequel is because that is indeed what they're going to do, is try to incorporate some of the Godzilla universe into it. But there are some issues. Number one, the timeline. At the time Godzilla would have arrived is, I think, a little bit after the first kaiju in Pacific Rim had landed in San Francisco and already destroyed the bridge that Godzilla destroyed. So that's one thing that's an issue, is the timeline. You could always do the alternate universe where there's parallel universes that collide, and this is how the universe of Godzilla meets the universe of Pacific Rim. Obviously, we've seen stuff like that on TV with The Flash, parallel universes joining and meeting each other. So it's not